So, hello and welcome and greetings to everyone here today to this webinar, Exploring DataCite Metadata in OpenAlex. I'm happy to introduce myself. I'm Maria Gould from DataCite, where I'm Director of Strategic Programs and Partnerships, and very pleased to be joined on this webinar today by Kyle Demes from OpenAlex, Chief Operating Officer, and you'll hear from Kyle shortly. We're really excited to see so many people joining today. We had nearly 700 people register for this webinar, which is a great testament to the level of interest that all of you have in this topic. I'm seeing we're getting close to 300 joining on the call right now, and we're really happy to see people joining from literally all over the world. So a few brief housekeeping items. As we get started, I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to get the most out of this event. So wanted to make a few remarks in that regard. The first thing is that we will be posting and distributing the slides and recording from this event, and we'll follow up after the fact with links on how to access those materials. We also are going to have extensive time at the end of the presentation today for Q&A. And because we have so many people here, which is wonderful, we want to make sure that everyone has a chance to post questions and that we can easily see them. So please use the Zoom Q&A box if you have a question that you would like to ask. Great to see everybody saying hello in chat, but if you have a specific question for Kyle or for me, please use the Q&A box to ask it. We will also have a brief survey at the very end of the Zoom webinar when you leave, if you want to share any comments or feedback about how this went and anything else you'd like to learn about or see in the future. And then lastly, DataCite does have a code of conduct to ensure that everybody participating in our community activities is able to do so. As part of that code of conduct for online events, we do not permit the participation of AI bots and AI tools. So we will be actively restricting those from participating so that everyone has a chance to be here all together. So those are a few housekeeping items from me. And I wanted to start off today by reflecting a little on why we are here today and set the stage. So this is a webinar called Exploring DataCite Metadata in OpenAlex. And the reason why we're doing that is because we were very excited to announce last month an official integration of DataCite metadata into OpenAlex. And we wanted to celebrate that, and we'll talk about the many reasons why it's worth celebrating, and also wanted to give the community a chance to learn more about how this integration works. What is it unlocking in terms of the possibilities for greater discovery and insights and connections with research now that OpenAlex and DataCite are closely connected to each other. So that's a brief reflection on what brings us to this webinar today. And on that note, I'm seeing so much activity and greetings in the chat, but I wanted to take a moment and explore a bit more about what's bringing all of you to this session today. So to help you respond to that question, I'm going to launch a brief Zoom poll with a few questions that everyone can respond to. So you will see the poll on your screen in a moment. And we just want to get a sense for everybody here today, your level of familiarity with DataCite and OpenAlex already, whether or not you've already taken a chance to explore the new integration, and also if there's anything specific that you're hoping to get out of the session today so that we can make sure to tailor our content accordingly. So I'll keep this poll up for a minute or so and give everybody a chance to respond, and then we'll share the results. have about 75 people participating in the poll already, which is fantastic. I'll leave it up for another 30 seconds or so if you're still working on your answers. All right, we're at about 90% participating, and I'm seeing the responses slow down. So I'm going to end the poll for now so that we can get a sense of how everybody voted. I hope everyone should be able to see the results on my screen right now. So interesting to see. We have a nice breakdown of those who are already representing DataCite member organizations and the DataCite community and those who are not. Also have a high level of experience already using OpenAlex, which is great to see, and also some people who are maybe about to use OpenAlex for the first time. And seeing a lot of people, Kyle, who have yet to explore the integrations, which I think is a great reason for everybody join here today. And I think on that note, now that we've kind of set the stage and we've gotten a sense of what's bringing everybody to this session today, I'm going to give a little preview of what we'll be covering next. So as we move into the next part of the session, we're going to start off with a brief introduction or reintroduction to DataCite. I know many of you here, as indicated in the poll, are already familiar with DataCite. We'll keep that really brief, but also want to make sure for the newer faces in the audience that you have a chance to get to know DataCite a little bit and how to get more involved in what we do. Then I will pass the mic over to Kyle to introduce himself, to introduce and reintroduce OpenAlex, and then to take us on a really exciting tour of how this new DataCite integration in OpenAlex is working. And then, as I mentioned, we will have extensive time toward the end for asking and answering all kinds of questions that come to mind for all of you. So that is our roadmap for today. So starting with a brief introduction and reintroduction to DataCite, we provide at DataCite community-supported open infrastructure for research organizations all around the world. We are a nonprofit membership organization for libraries, for funding organizations, for research centers, repositories. Any kind of organization that participates in research activities is welcome to join our community as a member and take advantage of the services and infrastructure that we provide to support organizations in registering DOIs for all of their research outputs and resources and activities, so that the metadata and information about all of those research outputs and activities can become globally and openly discoverable in all kinds of tools that we ourselves offer at DataCite through our APIs and search interfaces, and also so that any type of metadata consumer around the world has a chance to access and discover and reuse that metadata as well. So those are a few high points and highlights of what we do at a glance. And a key thing, a key thread that connects all of this is this concept of metadata and the key type of information that research organizations around the world are actively managing and maintaining about their research activities. And the way in which we support that in the DataCite context is supporting a journey of discovery at multiple points and in an end-to-end process. And so we work closely with our member organizations who join DataCite to register DOIs and share metadata with us about all of their outputs and activities. As they do that, We bring all of that metadata provided by our member organizations into our systems. We store and process it. We do some exciting things to establish connections across different outputs and activities, all leveraging the power of persistent identifiers and open metadata. And then we're able to make all of that metadata openly available through our APIs, through our data files, through various interfaces, so that this information about research can be discovered and connected and analyzed and reused by anyone who's interested. And what that unlocks and what we'll be hearing about in the OpenAlex context is that it's not just about discovering and interacting with metadata in the context of DataCite systems themselves, but that we are closely tied into a vast ecosystem of downstream services and systems that consume DataCite metadata, bring it into alignment with other kinds of research information so that the broader global research community has a chance to understand all of this research in context. And so what we've enabled with this integration with OpenAlex is the ability for DataCite metadata to be discovered by anyone who's interacting with the services and tools that OpenAlex provides. So that's a brief overview of the kind of work that DataCite does directly with research organization metadata and as it connects to the broader global research landscape. For those who are newer to our community, I just wanted to close my reintroduction to DataCite by emphasizing a few key ways in which you can become more involved in what we do. One key way is joining us as a member. We have various types of membership options that suit a variety of different organizations and use cases. Another way of interacting with us is connecting your repository systems or other systems to our APIs. We also work closely with a number of service provider partners around the world who have already constructed integrations with DataCite to make it easy for DataCite DOIs to be registered. We also are really excited to support any type of consumption and integration of DataCite metadata via downstream services, such as the OpenAlex integration that we'll be hearing about today. And lastly, as I mentioned, we are community-supported, community-governed open infrastructure. And part of that means that we partner and collaborate and work closely with all kinds of research stakeholders to listen to their feedback, to learn about their use cases, to collaborate on shaping best practices. And so we support that through different community groups and working groups. We have an open GitHub portal where any user can submit feedback on our products and services for us to put into our development pipelines. And so we really see the work that we are doing with our community activities and our technical development as being closely tapped into the broad array of use cases of the global research community. So please join us if you're not part of what we do already. And on that note, I'm really happy to pass the mic over to Kyle.
All right, great. Thank you, Maria. I'll just quickly share, see how seamless we can do this. Can you just confirm that you hear me and see the slide?
All good.
And I think it was the one we left off on, so that's good as well. A quick note to say, again, just thank you to DataCite for this, for bringing us all together. Thank you to everyone who's attending. I see people who I know are attending at times that are very early in the morning and very late in the evening, so special thanks to those. And really to the DataCite staff who are helping make all of this happen. Paul in the chat, and then Cody and Kelly who have been helping with this implementation quite a bit. So thanks to everyone for that. It looked like most people have heard of OpenAlex. I think it was 65%, which is great. I don't want to spend too much time talking just about OpenAlex because there's lots of webinar content where you can see me talk for hours about OpenAlex. But a brief reintroduction is helpful to talk about the context of this integration. People ask a lot where we get our name, and I think that's a really good place to start. OpenAlex is actually inspired by the Library of Alexandria, which I guess was famous for two things. The first is housing the world's information, all the world's knowledge, and then the second is for burning down. And we take both of those very seriously. And our goal is to house all of the world's scholarly knowledge in one place, organized and open. And then we also are doing everything we can to do this in a sustainable way, so that it doesn't burn down. So just to let you know, this is what inspires all of the work that we do. To give you a sense of what that means in practice, we go through research outputs. This is an example of one of my papers on the right, and you can see we try and extract information or metadata about that publication. So the title, where it was published, when it was published, who published it, what institution they were at, what the publication is about, the abstract, citations, who funded it, all of this information, and we try and connect it to known other sources. So a source is a journal. So we connect this to that journal, to a publisher, to an institution that exists, to other known works, to funders, this sort of thing. And we call this a scientific knowledge graph. But the idea here is that we're bringing together all of the world's research information and connecting it to make it easy to find, to make it easy to use, and then publishing all of it completely openly. 3 quick points on OpenAlex, actually 4, I think. The first is that we are a nonprofit, very similar to DataCite. We share similar goals of supporting the community and advancing open science. 100% of our source code is open. You can go find it on our GitHub, and also it's preserved in software heritage. So I say this to say we're really trying to advance open science and living what we preach, but really the value of doing this openly is that great community members like you and everyone here can help contribute. And a lot of people have contributed to this integration, and a lot of people are going to keep contributing. We're in the middle of a big rewrite right now, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But we had people looking at our GitHub every day saying, oh, I see what you're doing, and that's really exciting. Have you thought about doing this? And this is one of the reasons that we do things out in the open like that. On that note, 100% of our data is also open access. In fact, we don't even call it our data. The only thing that we own is our brand, our trademark for our name and our brand. Everything else is community owned. This data is all CC0 for reuse however people want to do it. And this is a major differentiator of these scientific knowledge graphs or these academic databases, because the other ones are proprietary. You have to sort of pay for access to data. So you can never really see the entire thing. So that's really important for us. Anyone in the world right now can go and download a snapshot of the entire OpenAlex database. That's great for a lot of use cases, but also there's very few people who know what to do with a data set that large and how to make use out of it. So we've got 2 other ways that people can sort of interact with our data. The first is an open API. We say it's open, and it's about as open as we can do. It's 100,000 free calls a day without having to register or anything like that. And you get up to 200 responses per call. So I think you can see this is a very generous, open, free API that anyone around the world can start using. And this is a little bit more helpful than the snapshot, because most people just want, for instance, publications within their country or publications at their institution. And you can get that data a lot faster, and you can build derivative products on top of an API that you can't necessarily on a snapshot as easily. But the third way to access our data that I'm going to spend some time showing in a moment is through an open user interface. And user interfaces have their pros and their cons. The pro, obviously, is that it's pretty easy to get to and to navigate if you have no technical experience. The downside is it doesn't have all of the power of the data set. It just has what we've coded for people to be able to do in it. So I'll just give you an example here. When I was an academic, I had a very specific niche that I studied, and it was the interaction between ecology, biomechanics, and seaweeds. That's very specific, and I wanted to find just those couple hundred publications out of the sea of hundreds of millions. And this is the kind of thing you can do in the user interface, is say, find me all the publications where kelp, macrophyte, or algae are there, and it also includes mechanics, and it also includes ecology or evolution. And sure enough, you get the 308 results, and this is exactly what I was looking for. And we try and make that as easy as possible for people to get to. A quick note on who uses OpenAlex, because it really helps shape the reason why we did this integration. So we serve about 20 million API calls a day. This map on the left here is a map of the OpenAlex UI visitors, and I think this was a 6-month period. So you can see at the high level, we've got 116,000 unique users just in the United States alone, but really a lot of people are using this data set. And they're using it for different reasons. There's the researcher who is using it like me to find their specific researcher. There's academic institutions that are trying to figure out who they should collaborate with. There are people who are trying to figure out, who are trying to build recommender systems for reviewers, people who are studying the shape of science itself and how policy impacts the outcomes that we want in the world. So really diverse uses. But an important thing that I want to say here is that in the existing systems right now, the coverage is very limited. And I mentioned that we want to have all of the world's knowledge. We want people to be able to find and analyze data on all the world's knowledge. When I was looking for my kelp ecology, I didn't want to just find the publications from a particular country. I wanted to be able to find them from all around the world, finding all of that knowledge. So that really shapes our approach and why we sort of needed to collaborate with DataCite on this, is to achieve that goal. We already have broader coverage than all of these other databases, but our goal isn't to have broader coverage. It's really to have all the research metadata. So I just reiterated that goal, but it's also really helpful to keep in mind what our users have told us over the last couple of years that they want out of OpenAlex. And they're not misaligned. They want largely the same thing, a completely comprehensive database. No one has told us we want you to remove all of the publications from this country, from this language. No one has once said that. What they do want is to be able to filter some of it out, but they want to be able to find it when they can. So that's very much aligned. But the tension that we've had over the last, I'd say 2 years, 18 months as an organization, is that people want as much metadata as possible, and they also want it as high quality as possible. And there's this really mature model with publication metadata where there's a pretty high sense of standard for a journal publication and what that metadata looks like. But as you start going to more diverse outputs like data sets, like software, the things that people want included, there's the tension for us because the metadata isn't as mature yet. And so DataCite, I think, has been a leader in trying to bring these diverse research outputs into the knowledge graph generally. Obviously, the name DataCite is probably a good example of where their roots came from. And so we really wanted to start with data sets and sort of build out from there. So that's the tension that we've had. And this is why it was such a fun opportunity to collaborate with DataCite, because these are also goals that they have and things that they want to sort of collaborate with. To give you a sense of how things used to work in OpenAlex before this integration, which will also help you understand why we wanted to do it, this is what our ingest model looked like. You don't have to memorize all of this, but what I want to show you up here is you can see Crossref features very prominently in our early architecture. And that's because, like I mentioned, there's a very mature metadata model for journal publications. And so Crossref was a really great place to start. But we really only had a few other sources in OpenAlex, PubMed, and then a few of these repositories that also had fairly mature and limited scope. So they're very easy to integrate. And then you can see at the bottom this sort of other repositories. That other repositories line doesn't actually continue through to creating new works. We just didn't create new works if they were in DataCite, for instance. We might have linked a work from Crossref to a repository free open access version, but we didn't create new works. And that was a serious shortcoming of our original architecture. So this became apparent to us about 2 years ago when our users started saying, we'd love to find these journals that only mint DOIs using DataCite, or we want to find all the data sets in DataCite, or finally, we have software in DataCite. Why don't you have it in OpenAlex? So we started hearing this a lot from the community of wanting that. And so about 2 years ago, we started that integration. And I was reminded when the last time I did a webinar with DataCite was actually in June 2024 with Racha Puebla on finding, tracking, and analyzing data sets in OpenAlex. And we started just doing data sets and we started that ingest. But what we realized is every day we found some new challenge of what the metadata looked like for data sets or for software that didn't match our architecture. And so DataCite was actually a really big motivator for us to completely rewrite our architecture, to no longer be just dependent on Crossref, but to be more broad and diverse and allow it and make it easy to ingest new sources like DataCite, but also build on that and add others. So we're really appreciative to that but it has taken us quite some time to completely rewrite our data architecture. This is the new ingest schematic. I won't spend too much time on it, but I did want to say we'll make a prettier one soon. This is all still very fresh. In fact, we did the blog post last week. That's when we launched as a beta, but actually it was just earlier this week that we made the default this new system. But you can see over on the left, now we've got Crossref ingest, DataCite ingest, both side by side as primary partners. But even at the bottom here, you can see repos ingest. We're now also, as part of this work that we did to ingest DataCite, now able to get thousands, tens of thousands of institutional repositories at the same time. So this was a really big win for us, something we're really excited about. And just to give you a sense of what that looks like now, I think there will be a link in the chat to this exact report. I'm going to go into it and do a bit of a demo. But now you can go into OpenAlex and look just at what we have from DataCite. So you'll see on this figure, there's 99 million records just from DataCite. I think there's more DOIs in DataCite. We made some decision of things to exclude for now to make things work a little bit better. We'll continue adding, but I should say this is a live ingest. So every day we're getting new works that have registered DOIs with DataCite. So I think everyone should be happy to hear that. And then we can just start exploring them. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that. So for anyone who is watching, you're also able to follow along on your own computer if you want to. But Maria, can you just confirm that now you see the OpenAlex?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so go into openalex.org. This is our user interface. You'll see there's a flashy thing here that says data version 2 is now live. That's just to let everyone know, hey, there's been some changes because this just released. But you can start searching anything in here. So I mentioned I study kelp. So let's just type in kelp. So now we're looking in the title of abstract of all of our sources for kelp. Now I mentioned that DataCite is in there, and it is, but it's not yet the default. So we have something called XPack. And if you hover over this, you'll see we call this the expansion pack of 192 million works. This is coming from DataCite and other repositories. Right now, it's not the default because we need to do a little bit more metadata work to make it better integrate with our systems, but you can already explore it by clicking that button. So you see when I turn that off, there was 11,000 works with kelp, and now there's almost 18,000. So a really significant lift on that. And just about anything you'll look at will have more works when you do that. I did kelp, maybe let's just do me as an author. So Kyle Demes. Oh, here we go. These are my publications. You can see before XPack, there was 29 works attributed to me, and now there's 31. I'm not an active researcher. I used to be. That's why there's probably not that much of a difference. But the point here is that all of these entities that we've connected in OpenAlex are going to see a lift because of this. And for anyone who wants to start exploring that, you can go ahead and openalex.org and start doing that. I think there was a link we were going to try and put in the chat. Maybe it already got in there. Great. You guys are awesome. I'm just going to click on that link so you can see it. I like this link because you'll see that I've built out all of these different reports that you can start analyzing, and how you change your screen will sort of change how that is. But anyone can follow that link and get here. And you'll see XPack is selected, but we've also created a new filter that is indexed in DataCite. So to get to that, you can just type in here indexed. Oh, indexed in. I don't know why that's coming up. And you can pick and you can explore, show me just DataCite. It's already selected there, but that's how you could do this. And now you're exploring just the DataCite corpus that we've ingested into OpenAlex. You could also, if you wanted to, for some reason, see everything that is not in DataCite, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about DataCite. If you're new to the OpenAlex user interface, it's sort of the same thing every time. You have all the publications here on the left, and you can see you can sort by different things like the year, when it was created, field-weighted citation impact, citation, things like that. You can download up to 100,000 works from the user interface. That's not a limitation of us not wanting to give you the data. It's just that becomes a very large file and takes a long time to download. If you need that volume, you should probably use the API. But you can make this smaller and download from there. And then you can just start exploring. So a couple things I want to point out. You'll see with our DataCite records, there's sort of a massive peak in the last couple of years. And a lot of that is because there's a bunch of new data sets that have just been registered, and they're brand new and really high volume. And some of that is because we still need to do a little bit more work refining how we get date metadata from DataCite. But uh, but this is still really helpful, and you can see that trend. And if you start taking out things like other in DataCite, like you just focus on article, for instance, you see that more normal trend that you're used to looking at when you just look at journal publications. So again, if you haven't used OpenAlex before, as I click on one of these, it auto updates as a filter. So if you wanted to look just at the other, you can do that and you can explore what those are. We're spending a lot of time right now looking at this. DataCite has a lot of diverse research output types that aren't in our schema yet. And so over the next year, we're going to be adding more. Spoiler alert, the first one will be software. We think that there's such a rich corpus of software metadata in DataCite that isn't anywhere else that we're really excited to get people exposed to. But you can start exploring that now, and you'll see as I do each of these, it updates the sources, the funder, the author, institution. But you'll see in some of these, the metadata isn't exactly like you'd expect. Like for type other, the top author is Geoscience Australia. You're expecting to see a person, but in some of these things, like in type other, there are geological cores, for instance. The author sometimes isn't a person. It's actually been intentionally been an institution. So that's one of the reasons why this is still XPack, while we figure out how to get all of this into our schema a little bit more nicely. But you can see a lot of this is data sets, but a lot of these are things that aren't. So preprints have been great additions, articles, dissertations. One of the most common things that we hear from institutions is they want to see their dissertations covered better. And most institutional repositories that I know have been working with DataCite to register their DOIs. And so that was a really big win for us. But you can also go through and see the sources of where we're getting most of this. You can see we've already linked funders to a lot of this, the licenses of the actual content itself. Now, this is another one where things are a little bit different. This makes sense for a lot of the outputs, but it doesn't necessarily for all of them, because DataCite's doing this great work to sort of bring in more diverse research outputs, but we're going to be in this delicate dance where we have to change a lot of the models that we think about this. Not everything is a journal article anymore, and that's good. That's the future we want. But it's really this collaboration that's going to help change how people can track and find all of that. So I encourage all of you to go and explore some of the things that people do now, with like search a particular source. Let me see if my repository is in there. One I was just looking at earlier. So let me do like source. And I'm just searching within the filters. Someone from the University of Manitoba was asking if their repository was indexed. So now you can go and see, yeah, here's MSpace, the University of Manitoba's repository. And here's the 25,000 works we got just from that, that source. And you'll see there's some interesting spikes here as well. This is as we learn the date for dissertations. There was a time when they went and indexed all of them. And we need to figure out how to change the date because some of these are older. So little things like that we're going to continue to improve. But all of that information is in there. I think maybe one more thing I should say is this is also a really great way, I think, of looking at DataCite adoption. If I go back to indexed in DataCite, one of the group bys that I put on here was country. And an institution even. And so you can see the institutions that are registering a lot of works, but also, oh, maybe I didn't put country. Well, I should. Oh, well, there's language on there. So you can sort of see that a lot of these are English, but also there's a really large amount of German language works that are coming just from DataCite. We know that Germany as a country has been using DataCite a lot more than a lot of countries. A lot of journals in Germany are only using DataCite DOI. So this is the kind of thing that you can start exploring. And I think I'm just over my time, and I do want to make sure there's plenty of time for Q&A. I have one last slide just to say where we're going next. We're going to continue to refine our new system because we did two things this week. We launched all these new works and we launched a brand new system. So we're doing a little bit of bug crushing on the new system. We're going to start adding even more sources, but before we do that, we're going to collaborate very closely to enhance the XPack metadata quality. We probably should have done a little bit more talking about Comet, but Comet is this really great collaborative initiative that we're both partners on to help figure out how we can together as a community and other organizations really curate some of that metadata and then get it pushed back upstream. So we're really excited about that as a way to help make this data even more usable for people. We're going to integrate new outputs. Research software, I said, is spoiler. That's where we're going to be going probably next May. And then new inputs. This is something I'm working on right now almost every day, is funding metadata and how to get better grant and funding metadata linked to all the DataCite records as well, so that now funders can see all of the DataCite records that were funded by their work. And then just sort of a longer term vision, I think you're going to start seeing us move away from this idea of a version of record where there's one source of truth for work, and now we have a record of versions where things have changed over time. And DataCite is really laying the foundation for us to be able to do that work with some of the versioning and DOIs and things like Zenodo. We're really excited to be able to get to that, and we wouldn't be able to without the foundational work they've already done. So we're looking forward to continuing that collaboration. And I think the next slide is just Q&A. It looks like there's some questions in the chat. Maria, I'm not sure how you want to best handle this.
Yeah, I can field a few to you if that works, because
Yeah.
I think most of them coming in are going to be about everything that you just showed. So I'll summarize a few and you can take a look as well. I wanted to thank you for walking everybody through that before we get to the questions, and wanted to comment briefly. I think it's a great illustration of the breadth and diversity of the kind of metadata that DataCite supports, the broad scope of the DataCite community, and the types of outputs that our members register. We saw the articles, preprints, software, as well as data outputs and other types of entities, and seeing them come into the OpenAlex fold is really exciting for many reasons, and I'm seeing a lot of excitement in the chat as well. And to your point about metadata quality and refinements, I just want to emphasize how important it is that we think about this as a collective effort, and that we leverage the power of this open infrastructure that we are supporting to make all of this metadata better and more usable for everyone's benefit. And so there's so much promise yet to come. And on that note, I think maybe one question to start off with is about the extent of coverage of DataCite in OpenAlex. You showed there are about 99 million DataCite DOIs in OpenAlex already. That's amazing. We're just over the 100 million mark on the DataCite side, so that's really amazing coverage. I do think there are some questions that I'm seeing about both if something is not if somebody is expecting something from DataCite to be in OpenAlex and not finding it, why might that be the case? You showed some tips and tricks about using the XPack filter. And then also, in addition to working more in the system, if there's a question or issue that folks want to report, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, okay, good questions. So the first, I would say, that I heard about looking for works that aren't in there. This is actually a good point, because often people will come to me and they'll search for like a journal name and say, hey, you say you have DataCite, but this journal isn't in there. And actually it could just be the way that you're searching for those works. Maybe we haven't correctly linked them to the journal. So one thing I want to say, I'm going to try and find a DOI really quickly, but actually I can use any of these papers. I'm just going to go into the API really quick and grab a DOI. One of the things we've built into OpenAlex is that when you're searching, you can actually just copy and paste a DOI in here. And if we have that DOI indexed, it's going to pop it up. Now, for now, if you're looking for a DataCite DOI, make sure you have XPack selected. I say for now because that's not the plan to always have this. We just need a little bit more work until we make that part of the default. But that's the best way to see, because maybe we have that work and, well, I know that's a Crossref DOI. So that's some of the work that we need to do, but that's the best way to see if that's in there. If there isn't something in there that should be, there's lots of reasons that could happen. I would say the best thing to do is to email support@openalex.org. That's our general support ticket box. We don't have the capacity to respond to every single support ticket, but we do look at every single one of them, and we decide whether or not there's something urgent. And everything that isn't urgent, we still synthesize and say, this is a bug that we need to get to. We do have a very long list of bugs, I can tell you, and feature requests, but we do get to all of those. So that's the best way. Yeah, thanks, Maria.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and I know we had a couple of questions coming into the DataCite support desk after this integration was announced, and we said we're happy to look into things on our end, but it's also a good idea to contact the OpenAlex team directly. And I know folks have been getting some immediate responses from you guys, so that's great to see. And please, to everyone, continue to continue to reach out to both DataCite and OpenAlex teams if you have questions. Okay, so scanning through the Q&A a bit more, we talked about using the XPack filter. We talked about what to do if you're not seeing something. Let's see. I think
there's a
that,
few quick ones I think I
yeah.
can
Do you want to
track maybe while you
tackle?
look
Why
for.
don't? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Why don't you do whatever stands out?
Yeah. So Amanda asked, why is book coverage still low? Yeah, good question, Amanda. We definitely have the broadest coverage of books, but there's a couple reasons here. One is we've actually indexed books and we don't know that they're books because the type is wrong. And the other is that they might not be indexed in any of our sources. So as we expand to more sources, we're going to look for more places that focus on just books. But actually, we realized a lot of the type other in DataCite currently are books and book chapters, but there's something in the way that we're recognizing that isn't fixed. So that's one of the known bugs we have. So you'll see the books count go up because books are already in there, but they just aren't of type book correctly currently. So thanks for that question. There's a
Awesome.
question of,
Thank
can we
you.
filter by journal quartile and its impact factor? There's lots of reasons why I don't love talking about journal level metrics, but if you do want to look at journal things in OpenAlex, I just showed you works. If you go up to the top and look at sources, one of the things you do is you can say, show me just the journals, for instance. You can sort by the 2-year mean citedness, which is sort of a relevant comparator to the journal impact factor. Not something we love doing, but there is the capacity to do it if you're so inclined.
Awesome, thank you. And kind of relatedly, I'm seeing a question maybe builds on that, which is, other types of sources you're looking to add. On the question of scope, going back to that question about books as well, like what are some other resources or data sources we might see in the future?
So the immediate one that we should have on our radar, and we do have on our radar, are the other DOI registration agencies. So JALC, KISTI, MEDRA. There's a lot of other DOI registration agencies. So not quite as large and as broad in scope, but those are great sources to use. Working with OJS, the Open Journal software, a lot of their works get registered already through DataCite or Crossref, but the ones that don't, we want to make sure we're getting those because that's really high quality metadata and scholarship. Institutional repositories, you'll see us broaden that out. It's a little bit of a challenge for us because institutional repositories sometimes have things that are really fantastic scholarly work, and then sometimes we'll have, for instance, a menu from a conference as a PDF, and we need to figure out better how to filter things out from repositories that aren't scholarly. But that sort of answers both of those questions. We want to continue expanding till we get all of the scholarly knowledge, and scholarly knowledge is kind of our default of where we say no to things.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
questions.
And building on that, I'm seeing a couple of questions in here about curation and wondering if you can talk a little bit more about that, especially as OpenAlex is expanding to bring in more metadata from DataCite, more metadata from other sources. Seeing some questions about how to ensure metadata and data integrity, and also how you're thinking about future approaches for the curation of metadata in OpenAlex itself.
Great questions. So we've piloted over the last year or so a few different curation pipelines in OpenAlex directly. We've let people sort of curate particular fields that are of interest to the community that aren't perfect, but they really want them to be able to get to there. And what we've discovered is that actually in a lot of cases, the curations that are submitted degrade the quality of the database further not because people are trying to do something malicious. I know sometimes people have that fear. We've never seen that. But we have seen that it's a very complex data structure and people don't always understand. So they'll say that something is open access when it isn't because their library has paid for them to have access and they don't realize that because of their IP range or silly things like that. So what we're doing now is moving towards a model where we're going to be able to train people in specific curation. So someone will be able to get a tag on their account as librarian or a curator, and they will be able to make curation requests. But that's sort of on the small scale. And on the larger scale, we do metadata quality curation all of the time internally, where, for instance, there's missing author data in DataCite or Crossref records. Oh, but the PDF is available. We can go to the PDF, parse that PDF, and get the author information. So we're already doing quite a lot of that. And then I'd say the medium scale is, I think, where things are most interesting. This is like Comet, where, for instance, we know there's a challenge with work type from one of our particular repositories. We can do some new work collaboratively to test a new algorithm, verify it, and then if we feel confident about the results, we can then overwrite some of those records as assertions. And that's, I think, where things are getting really exciting. We just did a blog post a couple weeks ago talking about our new language detection classifier. And that was a great example where some researchers in the community did that verification and testing of new algorithms, made a recommendation for us, and we could adopt that algorithm. So I'd say, we're thinking about this from a lot of different ways. We know some people are always going to want the ability to do their own individual curation records, so that will be there. We're always going to have to do some things at the scale of OpenAlex, and we're super keen to collaborate in the middle. And that's really what that Comet initiative is about.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. And I am seeing a question about metadata enhancements and about how to support pipelines for these various types of metadata curation and enhancement activities to feed into and around the different places that OpenAlex is connected to. So that is exactly what's going on with this Comet effort that DataCite is actively participating in as well, looking at community-driven collaborative approaches to support better metadata and metadata pipelines across systems. I think we already put a link to Comet in the chat, but we can drop it in again for people to learn more. But we do want to take an approach to all of this work. I'm speaking for OpenAlex here. I think that's okay. That we don't want to duplicate all of these efforts to improve metadata. And there's so much potential with the open infrastructure that we are all helping to support in the collective sense to share these enhancements in different ways and in different directions and in collaboration with communities. So that is going to continue to be an active area of work for many of us. Okay, we have 5 minutes or so for some more questions. Kyle, is there anything else that stands out as you're scanning that you want to jump to next?
Yeah, I can do a couple quick ones if maybe you want to find a really good one that I should make sure to address. There's a question about OA status green in repositories. Patrick, this is a really great question and very relevant. Maria is also on our community advisory board, so she knows this, but at our last meeting, we discussed how the OA classification scheme doesn't work anymore with diverse outputs. It worked really well with journal articles and that model, but how we classify things as open and access isn't really working as well when you start thinking about dissertations or preprints or software or data sets. So we just formed a working group to start addressing how we should approach this. For now, we're saying if it's in a university repository as the only publishing entity like dissertations are, it should be green, because that's the typical model. But all that to say that we think there's a lot of changes that need to happen in the near future to reflect the growing ways that the scholars are communicating. So great question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. So here's a bigger question for OpenAlex from Johannes. How OpenAlex is navigating being transparent and supporting data integrity while also complying with different kinds of disclosure policies. Is there anything you can speak to in that regard, Kyle?
Not
I'm
sure
seeing
I
like,
understand. Do you have a, can you try rephrasing that?
I'm
Maybe?
wondering if I can phrase or rephrase, I think this is also relevant for DataCite as well, you know, in that we are supporting open stores of metadata about research. Sometimes that means we may have metadata for an item that is not publicly
Hmm.
available. So I would say on the, you know, on the DataCite side, we have different ways of supporting access indicators and licensing indicators through our metadata schema. I'm wondering in the OpenAlex context if this has anything to do with, you know, different open access and public access policies potentially. So Johannes, I hope we're commenting sufficiently on this. And if there are any further concerns, you can also get in touch directly, like with specific examples.
Yeah, I think that was a good way of addressing that, Maria. I just added, I think my screen is still sharing, license as a
Mm-hmm.
group by in OpenAlex to show we do have license as a metadata field referring to content, but we don't host content. So we don't have, for instance, things that are closed access. We don't have access to that content. We have access to metadata or facts about it. But that's sort of where that line is drawn. But this license is really important for the works we have that are open access because we want to make sure that people know what the license around that content is when they're able to access it. But yes, if we ever had something, some piece of metadata, or maybe there was something in an abstract accidentally that shouldn't have been there that needed to be taken down, we take these things down. It's not common that that happens, but yes, of course.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And I'm continuing to see some questions about how to report different issues or get in touch. So just want to emphasize, Kyle mentioned contacting support at OpenAlex if you have questions about coverage or if you are working on some sort of project and have a lot of metadata that you would like to see. For instance, this question about this great project in Sudan. So I would say for any specific questions about specific sources or groups of metadata, probably best to get in touch because it's a little challenging to answer on the air. I'm going to ask one quick question for you, Kyle, and then one to kind of close on. From a DataCite specific perspective, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the plans for continuing to bring in DataCite metadata. I more or less indicated that that was the case, but you know, seeing some questions about how frequently we might expect to see more DataCite metadata coming in. And then a final question about OpenAlex's kind of governance strategy that we'll get to.
Yeah, good. I think that's those are two good questions to end on. Um, So the first one on how frequently we'll ingest them. Yeah, 2 years ago when we did this webinar, we said we were adding like 300,000 a day. That was largely manual, which is why we have this question of, well, when are you going to do a little bit more? I showed on that ingest schematic, DataCite is now a core part of our upstream data ingest that runs every day. Probably every couple of hours. I can't confirm that for DataCite, but definitely every day you'll see new works added. So yes, as new works get registered for DataCite, they'll get in there. And this is probably a good reason for a lot of people to start thinking about registering DOIs for the first time. If someone says, how can we get our grant metadata in OpenAlex? Well, you could register a DOI in DataCite and it'll get in there automatically. We can also have conversations about how to get it there if you don't want to do that, but I think that's a real incentive for registering with DataCite. In terms of record corrections, if something gets corrected in DataCite, it will also push into OpenAlex, probably on the scale of a day. But I'd say be generous, give it a couple of days because sometimes things can take longer. But yes, that's the scope that we're looking at. And then the governance question, I think, is a really good one. I did mention that we don't want OpenAlex to burn down, so this is a great way to think about sustainability and governance. Right now, we're a 501c3 in the United States. We're also registered in Canada, where I'm joining from today. We're a nonprofit. We have a governing structure for the organization that has four directors that sort of have the fiduciary and legal responsibility for the organization and making sure that we're achieving our mandate and only focusing on our mandate of advancing open science. We then have a community advisory board There's 11 members who were elected from the community. I mentioned Maria as one of our first directors, so that's fantastic as well. And they provide a lot of helpful information on how we can and should act with the community. But we also have paid products and services. So all of the data is open and free. And that's how our model has been since we started 14 years ago. We've operated other products like Unpaywall successfully like this. The data's free and open for everyone, but some people pay for that time and services. And that's a really important part of our sustainability. It also means that sometimes we have to make sure that we're developing in a way that that people will want features developed. Sometimes we'll have someone say, hey, we really want this feature, but no one would ever support it and it's really unique to one use case. Then we sort of can't make that decision. So we are still operating within a market, but our market is the time and services cost money and the data is completely free. So I hope that sort of answers that question.
Yes, that's great, Kyle. And we are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to officially bring this to a close and thank everyone for joining us today, for all of your questions. I know we didn't get a chance to get to all of them. We'll go through after and see what we can address. Please also get in touch, support at openalex.org, support at datasite.org with more specific questions. Also, a quick plug for other ways to learn about what's going on at DataCite. We have a newsletter and a mailing list that anyone can sign up for. We're also doing a bunch of events next week to celebrate DataCite's year of 2025 and talk about what we're planning for next year. So there's links in the chat to register. Hope to see you there or at future DataCite events. We're really excited to have this conversation today. I want to thank Kyle for being willing to join us and walk us through this integration. And I'm really excited about the journey ahead. It was a long journey to get here, a lot of lessons learned, a lot of participation and collaboration, and the road ahead is really exciting. And we are going to be continuing to rely on all of you to make that journey possible. So thank you all very, very much. We appreciate you being here today and look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.